star anise looks, you've seen it, it's an Asian, it's very popular in Asian cooking. It is the star and little anise, and I ground it up. Considering I don't have an grinder, I use a mortar and pestle, and it took me forever. And I ground it up, and I ground up the coriander, which looks kind of like peppercorns. Coriander seeds are what you get when you let your cilantro bolt and it goes to seed. Those are coriander. Anyways, I found it was too dry, and I think it was because these pods absorb some of the moisture. Because it's not just the seeds, it's the pods. These little seeds, I suppose I could have just ground them up, but I'm going to try it today with anise flavoring, which is an anise extract. Extract d'anise, pure anise extract. And we'll see if it makes any difference. Otherwise, I've got plenty of star anise forever. You get the star anise at the Asian grocery. We get your best price. It comes in huge bags. Sometimes if you look around, you find a little bag, and if you just need a little bit, you can find the bags of mixed spices for different things like pho, and it will just have a couple. So that's really all you need is a couple. And the coriander, I do have some ground coriander. We're going to use that instead. So hopefully I can make it a little bit more tender than last week, because I ate all of last week's. Now, for a fruit, I felt it was a little boring, so we're going to use the zante currants, which are a species of grape, of a champagne currant. They are not actually black currants, and there's a story that goes with those. The black currants, we haven't been able to grow them in the United States since 1911 because that shrub carries a disease which affects white pine. But certain parts of the United States can now grow it, so hopefully we'll be able to get some. But these are zante currants, which I thought there's nothing snarkier than a fruit pretending to be another fruit. I just thought that was perfectly matched. So I'm going to put in a couple of tablespoons in a bowl, and what I want to do is I'm going to hydrate those because these are they're very dry. The scones only cook for 15-18 minutes, and I don't think that's long enough to make a dried fruit soft enough for myself, soft enough for my taste. So what I do is just rehydrate them a little bit. Some hot water from the electric kettle, and we're gonna swish that around. I mean, literally, it takes like no time because I don't want to saturate them. I just want to wake them up. Hello, Mr. Currant. Can you stop being so dry? And then we're going to do this. There we go. That was it. I just poured, you can even just use tap water, hot tap water, just to loosen them up, because if you don't use them very often, they've probably been in the cupboard for forever. So, since we're here, and I've been having terrible writer's block. Of course, I do have diarrhea of the mouth. I do not have a problem talking, but I have a problem writing. Like the other day, I just couldn't. It was just sitting there forever. So, I've been trying to write the introduction to my recipe book, which is just going to have the scone recipe and a bunch of scones. This is should be a cup and a quarter of flour, and you guys are supposed to be keeping track. So because I'm not flavoring it with any other sweeteners, I'm going to use a whole third. I'm going to use a third of a cup. So that's that, and then we have our 1.5. Like anybody else, I share pictures of my food on Facebook, and my friends are like, well, what's the recipe? You know, and after like the third scone, it was like, it's the same recipe over and over with slight changes depending on what I want to put in it. So I decided to go off on this scone project, and then I can share the recipe with saying, okay, if you put this in, then you just adjust it. You tweak it here, you tweak it there. So there's our butter. Using my vintage French fry cutter. And my new, I did see some at the grocery store. Now I've been actually looking at tools at the grocery store, and I did see a wire pastry. I suppose one of them is pastry cutter, one's a blender. I did see some that didn't have the jigger that annoyed me, so they are out there. I was in 2 different stores recently that had really good selections of basic tools. One of them was a hardware store, one of them was a True Value, and the other one was a store that had the Good Cooks selection, which I think is a better value than the Farberware ones or the Cuisinart ones, which are just a name. I mean, you're looking for something that's a good little tool. Most kitchen tools are not a forever purchase. I mean, only if you use it a lot, then buy a better one, like with anything else. Yeah, I hate this part. So there we go. We've got our basic scone in there. I mean, literally all I'd have to do is throw in some milk, and this could be a perfectly valid scone. As a matter of fact, I've done just plain scones with the currants in them. You know, you buy the currants to do one recipe at Christmas, and then the rest of the year it sits in the cupboard mocking you, saying, "Hey, why don't you cook me last year's?" And you have no other currant recipes in your repertoire. Well, start throwing them in things. I started doing that with dried cranberries. Now I put dried cranberries in everything. I put dried cranberries in meatloaf. Don't laugh, it's really good. Okay, that's as good as I want to do. So we're going to start with our coriander and let's see how much. We're not going to add a lot of the anise because obviously the anise is going to be way stronger than the powdered, the ground up that I used. So yeah, there's a medicine that smells like. So I'm going to put a lot. I'm going to put, that's a half. I'm going to put a whole teaspoon because I really wanted this. I really liked the anise flavor. Now, coriander is very similar to anise, and you probably do one without the other because the ground coriander I've been noticing is not in a lot of stores. So you can probably just skip this and just, if you've got this is a long container. If you've got a coffee grinder, you can clean it and you can grind spices. It might possibly have a little coffee flavor in it, but you could probably get away with just using the star anise ground up. And I'm going to put in a half of the coriander. It is a little bit similar. I don't think it's as strong as the anise, but it is in that same kind of savory umami side of the spices. And now we're going to put in our lovely, lovely currants. Now I'm thinking there's not enough currants. I'm terrible like that. I'm always like, let's put more and see what happens. We just want to stir that up. Also, pre-soaking them allows I just noticed that, I've noticed 100 times, is that pre-soaking the fruit, the dried fruit allows the flour to adhere. So they don't all end up at the bottom, which is what they would do in a softer dough. And as I've said before, and I really should film my fiascos. This morning I made a fiasco. I did a strawberry rhubarb as a present for somebody because they wanted them, and I did not have my glasses. I was not paying attention. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. I threw too much milk, and so she got a strawberry rhubarb cake. I was like, oh, okay, it's fine. I'm gonna put in half of this is a third. Since we didn't really add any other fluids except for that teaspoon of anise. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could probably use a liqueur. You could use anisette liqueur. I didn't really want to have one that was another alcohol one right in a row. Not that I really wouldn't have minded buying a whole bottle of anisette. It's just going to take me a long time to get through it. Because there's a limited amount of cocktails I can do that. So, just make sure that this doesn't go off on me. Keep my oven preheated. And as I've said before, I don't have a real size oven. I'm only one person. I really didn't like the years and years of heating an entire oven just to cook. The largest thing I'd ever cooked was probably a chicken, and I can cook a chicken in a large size countertop oven. I don't really need a full size oven, and most of the time I'm just cooking, 6 cups at the most of anything. So I get away with just a countertop oven, and it allows me to have a hutch full of all my yummy ingredients. All right, we definitely need the rest of the milk. And yeah, that works out great. Here we go. It's pulling it all in. I know I probably do it faster if I used a bigger spatula, but I find that the spatula has a long handle, and my arm's too short. And I got this table up on bed risers, and occasionally, if I'm standing up and I'm using the sewing machine, I'll have it on even another set of risers, and I'll bring it up to here. Just keep the bed risers, you know, stacked underneath the table, and I lift it up whenever I need it. So much for your standing desk. So I'm going to flour my hands, and I'm going to get in there, get the rest of it off. Oh, I can smell it. It's lovely. The rest of it off the bottom. I'm going to bring in my, so anyways, so that's how I started on the scone project, is people wanted my copies of my recipes. And since I make slight adjustments to them to compensate for, you know, more sugar, more sweeter, whatever, it was just only fair that I put it together. So I'm going to sooner or later produce a small recipe book with the basic scone recipe and then a selection of the more exciting ones. And we were, my friend Melissa has been giving me, critiquing my videos, because I've done videos before. I've produced other people's videos. I've never do a lot of my own. Hence, my face is not on the camera. Anyway, so we were thinking, well, what recipe would be next? And I said, well, what would a snarky flavor be? And my brain went to licorice. It went to anise. Okay. And I looked at some flavor profiles, and I found anise and coriander mentioned together a lot. Not that I couldn't have gotten away with just anise and currants. And you could probably do the same thing, whichever thing. If you find coriander, make it with coriander. Anise, make it with anise. But I thought the currant is the thing that has to be in there, because that is the height of snark. Pretending one fruit is a different fruit, and nobody cares. So I'm going to pop this in the oven and for 15 minutes, and we'll see you in back then. See if this works. I just did a whole video and realized that half of it was recorded. And I'm also going to try this tied angle. So this was an experimental flavor I made last week, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's called Snark. Basically, I've moved past flavors and now we're into moods. So we were like, well, what would a Snarky Scone be? Well, Snarky Scone, I know, an infinite number of scones. Snarky Scone is going to be flavored with coriander and anise, and I made it last week using star anise. Hi, and we've taken our Snark Scones out of the oven. Over the weekend I found some stainless cooling racks in the grocery store, and they were $2.97 for two, so that's $1.50. They are only about an ounce difference from the really ancient one that I have, except my really ancient one has little tiny, I have to keep cleaning the weld, so I'm not exactly sure. I mean, this one is cleaner and shinier, and it also makes it easier for me to move around. Are we stuck? Are we stuck? I don't know. What do you think? I want to make sure it moves before I flip it over, because I don't want to leave half a scone in the pan. I know, this doesn't really happen when you do it with aluminum. I know. Oh, this came out a lot lighter color. The one I ground, instead of 40 minutes grinding up the coriander seeds and the anise, came out darker because the anise pods brought some color to the party. But I really wanted it softer. I didn't really want it as dense and dry as it was with the powdered. Somewhere in the middle it's sticking. I don't know why. It must be a currant, a snarky currants. Okay, nice brown bottom, little currants peeking out. I did sprinkle sugar on the top. It hasn't been in there long enough for it to burn. Maybe my oven's not preheated enough. But It's not as browned as it probably could have been, but it's certainly brown. Bonus for me. Those are those. They're in the camera because I had to change from that. So we'll let those cool off. And thank you for joining me. These are Snark flavor.